In this video we're still on the main subject of Adobe Camera Raw, but the subject here is dealing with those spots and distractions. When we think about dealing with spots, blemishes and distractions in our images, we tend to think first of those annoying little dust marks that we can see in the skies of our images and sometimes in other areas too. Now I think most people are aware that those little dust spots are caused when we change lenses on our camera, and minute particles of dust will drift into the body, settle on the sensor, and then we see them as a little ghostly ring on the picture. Now when we use really small apertures, it tends to focus them into a much sharper point. But the good news is these dust spots are very easy to fix. Not only that, we can fix a number of images all in one go, and we'll take a look at that in a few moments. The image currently open is one that I used when we demonstrated the strategic editing tools. And if you remember, this particular image has used the radial filter. We used a graduated filter on the right hand side and also a little bit of the adjustment brush around the bird's eye. But at the time I drew your attention to the foliage down at the bottom right corner. The spot removal tool, which is the one we want, is located up at the top left. So when I go to select it, you'll see the little tooltip appear. And over on the right hand side we can see some options opened up. Not too many. First of all, we've got the size of the brush here, and we can change the brush size the same way as we change the adjustment brush by using the square bracket keys to the right of the letter P. The feather, that's the difference between that inner and outer ring to give us a soft part of the brush. That's set at 50% and I think most of the time that's going to meet our needs. As you can see, the opacity is set to 100, and I'm selecting heal from one of the two options here, heal and clone. What I'm going to do is just paint over this area at the bottom. I'll do it all in one go, and there you can see what the software's doing. It's repairing this corner by taking a selection from up here. There's a couple of little black spots within it, but I'm sure we can fix them too. What I'm going to suggest here is we just touch the V key and those overlays will be removed. If I then come down here, just going to make my brush a little bigger just to cover that black mark there, and click once, and down in the bottom corner click again. There we have it. Not so difficult. Now I started with an image with a much bigger distraction down in that bottom right corner to sort of demonstrate the power of the tools at our disposal. Let's move along and take a look at how we can fix dust spots in multiple images. We're looking at a batch of images in Adobe's Bridge. So it's not uncommon, is it, to see a whole batch of images of birds such as the ones you can see at the top. What I'm going to do is to fix the dust spot in the sky here, but I'm going to do it for all of these images, and we could choose more. I'm going to select the first, hold the Shift key and select the last. Then I'm going to hit the Enter key and all of these will be opened up into Camera Raw. Now you can see all of the thumbnails down the left hand side, and the one I'm viewing large in the center of the screen is whatever one I've got highlighted. So if I come down here to this one that doesn't have any white cloud in it, there you can see we're viewing that, but we can see a dust spot right up at the top. So what I can do here is to hit Control A to select all of those thumbnails down the left side. I can pick up my spot removal tool and I can click, or I'll make the brush a little smaller first. I can click into that area and that will fix the spot. Now remember, we use a red ring to fix the spot and a green ring to repair it. Here, because I've got multiple images selected, we only see the red ring. Now one of the ways we have to see the dust spots a little easier is way down at the bottom right. If we go down there, we've got a little box called Visualize Spots. Now when I click that box, you'll see all the little dust marks will be shown by a ring similar to these two you can see here. So what I'm going to do is just click that one and that one, go back and remove the little tick, but then to commit the repair of all of those thumbnails on the left hand side, I'm just going to click Done. Now as you can see by the spinning round of the screen, I brought you back into Adobe's Bridge. I've still got all of those thumbnails selected. Let me take the last one. I'll just select the last one. Not a very good image with the bird partially out of the frame, but if I double click and open that up into Camera Raw, how do I know that the fix has been made? Well, first of all, I can't see any marks in the sky, but all I'd need to do is select the spot removal tool, and instantly I can see the marks or the rings where the repairs have been done. Now supposing I did a complete batch and then I found that for reasons I can't really explain that this one here is not working quite so well. If I just click the ring, now you'll see we've got a red ring which tells the software what's to be repaired, and we've got a green ring where the repair is coming from. So I've got a couple of choices here. First of all, let's say the area isn't big enough to cover the blemish. Well, I can put my cursor over the edge and I can make the brush bigger by click and drag. I can also pick up the green ring and say make the repair from down here, and we often have to do that on occasions, but most of the time the tool works remarkably well. And of course, if we found that it was a repair we didn't need, then as long as we highlight the rings so they show up in red and green, then we just hit the delete key and they're removed. And I don't know if you can see it, but you can now just see that little dust mark just about there. So let me click Done here and we'll go back into Bridge. Just to make sure, I'll take one right from, let's take this one here just as a double check. We'll just open this one up, quickly select the brush, and there we can see the repairs have been made. Just to the right of the Visualize Spots box, we have a slider which will appear when I actually place the tick in the box. So what I've done to be able to demonstrate this is to hit the Clear All button. So I've removed all of the repairs we previously did, so we can redo them using that slider. So when I tick the box here, you'll notice that I've moved the slider way to the left and we can hardly see any of the spots at all. So the idea here is we use the slider to reveal the spots on the particular image we're working on. Now with this one, given it's completely blue in the background, we can possibly go to the extreme right, and if I do, I actually show up more spots than I first appreciated. But of course, now I can see them. I can get my brush the right size and just quickly click around here to repair them. Down at the bottom right, there's a couple there. You can see a couple along the bottom corner. So on that occasion, I'm just going to draw that in, and we'll let Photoshop do its work. Then we can remove the tick in the Visualize box. And just to make sure everything's working as we expect, if I just remove the tick in the overlay box, we can see the repairs all look first class. Now let's take a look at this image, because this is really bad for dust. If you look up just below the histogram, you can see why. I've used a 1/10 of a second shutter speed to create movement in the water, and to be able to do that I've had to stop the lens down to f10 almost f11, and I'm using a 16mm lens. So f10, f11 with a 16mm lens is going to focus the spots quite badly, and I think this was shot at a time when my camera badly needed a clean. But even then, it's not a big deal. It may take me 3 or 4 minutes to fix these, but let's take a look. First thing we may want to do is to double click that zoom tool to bring the image up to 100%. So I'll do that to start because that helps us to see. Holding the spacebar key, I can use the hand tool to scroll up to the top right, and now you can see all of the dust marks pretty clearly. Do we actually need, let's pick up the tool first, but I was going to say, do we actually need to visualize the spots down at the bottom right? Well, sometimes the visualize spots makes it a lot easier to see, sometimes it doesn't. I think on here we can see them quite well, but sometimes they can be very faint. For example, there's one just around this area here where I think is very faint. I'm sure you can just about see it. Now sometimes I even work with the tool with no feather at all, because if I click one of these bad ones here, and I'm going to touch the V key to remove that little ring of green and red, and you can see it's done a pretty good job. Let's try it out on one or two others. Click, 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 click. You can see it's struggling to keep up with me. I can actually click quicker than the software can work. I think when you hide the overlay, it actually slows the tool down just a little bit. So let's choose to bring it back, and you can see just click, and we can see exactly the repair that's done in real time. Now as we're starting at the top right of the image, now I can just press that spacebar, scroll a little bit to the right, so I can quarter the whole of the sky and make sure that I pick up all of the little dust marks. And as I said earlier on, this one is quite bad. But as you can see, not difficult, but it may take me 3 or 4 minutes to fix all of these. But once you get going, it actually does speed up no end. Now of course we do have tools within Photoshop that does this sort of work equally as well. So why would we want to do it in Camera Raw? Well, first of all, if we've got a number of images, as I've demonstrated earlier on, we can do a number together. But the beauty of fixing these in Camera Raw is if I then decided, I'm going to bring this picture up a little bit bigger, if I decided I wanted to try to defeat some of the noise in the sky, it's not a big problem here given that we're 200% enlarged, but if I wanted to deal with that, then I don't have to worry about having fixed those little dust spots. If I did it in Photoshop, then I might have to worry about that. They may show up, because what I'm going to do here is go to my detail option, and if I wanted to just reduce that noise a little bit in the sky, as you can see there, all of the repairs I've done with the dust spots are taken into account. Now the spinning round of the screen brings us to the extreme bottom right corner of the image, and I've increased the size of the image to 66.7%. I could click once more and that should bring us up to 100%, so you can see we're at the bottom right corner. Because not only do we want to deal with dust spots and some bigger areas like we demonstrated earlier on, but we've got a few little bits and pieces here, and we don't always appreciate how damaging some of these little areas are, like this one, this one here, a little bit of black there. We don't realize just how damaging these are until we're able to remove them all and then look at a before and after, and you can be often very surprised at the difference you're making. So remember, we can tick the box to visualize the spots better, but it doesn't help us here on wet sand, as you can see. We can tick the box to remove the overlay, but it's very convenient to use the V key. Just toggle them on and off. And of course, if we change our mind, we can just select an individual ring. If we didn't want this one, I can hit delete, but right down on the right I can clear them all in one go if that's what I want to do. Now I suppose a question I should ask and answer is, what's the difference between heal and clone? Well, if I click that white spot there, you can see the software does quite a bit of work to actually blend the repair into the surroundings. But there are times when we actually don't want that. When that occurs, then you just switch. I'll just delete that. You switch to the clone tool. Now when I click, I get a similar sort of repair, but if I drag this down here, you can see it brings this directly into that position. So if I was trying to repair something on a line up here, I can do something like this, for example, and then I'm going to get a repeat of the line. Whereas sometimes if we use the heal, I'm not sure if it's going to do it, but if we go over the line, it doesn't always protect the line. There you can see it's done a little bit of damage to the line. It's not important in the flat sand here, but with some pictures it will be. Now there's not a great deal more I can say about the spot removal tool, apart from emphasize the fact that it'll take away a lot more than just a spot. The image you can see on screen, the light area at the top, is actually a fault within the camera. The camera's shutter developed a fault, and as you can see it exposed the picture pretty well over most of it, but there was a bit of a bounce at one end, so that little slither at the top is actually overexposed. Now in this instance it wouldn't be a problem to just crop it away, but just to finish with this tool, let's pick up our spot removal. I'll make a brush up this side which is big enough to cover the spot. I'm going to click at that point and I'm going to drag all the way down, and I didn't mean to give that ring there, let me take that away. I'm going to click and just paint all the way down. I'll hit the V key to remove it. A perfect repair in what, a couple of seconds? Now I've listed the spot removal tool as probably one of those we would use in our global editing, but of course I think it's fair to say it could have a foot in both camps. We could argue that it's strategic editing, or I'm sure we could argue that it's also global as well.